Hey Lou, what's a snowman's favorite lettuce? Iceberg. Oh, wasn't that funny? Porgy didn't think it was funny either. Why is it, do you figure, that we have so much trouble talking to one another? Even in our relationships, whether it's our husbands and wives or sons and daughters, there's some kind of fear of speaking to each other. And I know immediately what's going to happen is people are going to say, I'll tell anybody what I want. I'll say whatever I want to whoever, whenever. But really, that's not true, because we have these hang-ups about talking to one another. Husbands won't tell their wives how they feel about a thing. Wives won't tell their husbands how they feel about a thing. And sometimes it's because we're not mature enough. I think that's what I'd like to see. I think that's what I I've been trying to teach lately is, hey, why can't we have mature conversations? Why is it that we can't have mature conversations? Just imagine how much could be accomplished. Just imagine how much could be accomplished if we just had the ability to speak to one another without the fear of someone ridiculing, without the fear of someone judging, without someone trying to boss us around, or someone becoming angry. I think that's the biggest thing, is we sometimes don't have the ability to talk to one another because we get angry. So wouldn't you think that we would be able to, especially when we get to a certain age in life, we'd be able to have conversations with one another without getting angry, without having that anger lead us. And what is it? Does people think you're going to get taken advantage of? So what? We get taken advantage of all over the place. I mean, I'm not one to be able to hold a grudge. Some people in my life don't like it that I can forgive so easy. They think you should put your foot in the ground and be there for a while, but I just don't have that ability. God didn't build me that way. I'd like for us to be able to have adult conversations. Fathers should be able to speak to daughters. Fathers should be able to speak to sons. Mothers should be able to speak to son-in-laws. We can just cast a wide net. Brothers and sisters should be able to talk to each other without there being an issue of anger involved, or being an issue of separation. Especially, I think about husbands and wives. You should be able to have that. I mean, you're supposed to be one flesh at this point, so both of you shouldn't be in the active pursuit of harming one another. So I think that a husband and wife should be able to sit down, having an open and honest discussion without having a knockdown, drag out fight. We shouldn't be calling each other names. We shouldn't be telling each other how terrible the other person is, or how miserable we are, but how are we going forward? How are we fixing the thing that we're at? People are holding on to way too much stuff in their life. They're holding on to pain and the inability to forgive, and instead of just handing it off, letting God take it. I mean, I didn't look up the song, but I think about that song, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." All our cares, all our burdens to bear. And you think about that song, what a friend we have in Jesus. He takes all our worries away. But we're not trusting in him. We're not allowing him to be the leader of our lives. So then that's where the failure comes in, and that's where the inability for us to speak to one another is. That's not how we're supposed to be behaving. That idea that we're supposed to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. That's where people get the golden rule mixed up. Some people think it's I will do unto others as they do unto me. But that's not what it is. That's a position of anger. That's a position of revenge. I don't think we should be doormats in any case, but we should be able to responsibly speak to one another and do unto others as we would have them do unto us. I've been talking lately a lot about looking at ourselves in the mirror and deciding who we really are. I think if we look ourselves in the mirror, we'll be able to have a better understanding of how we should be treating our brothers and sisters. How can I talk to my wife? How can I talk to my sons or daughters without fear of making them mad? I mean, I understand it takes two people, because if both people aren't mature, then it's going to be a difficult road. But it has to start somewhere. And why shouldn't you be the one to start it? Why shouldn't you be the one to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, these are things that I struggle. These are, problems that I have. I have an anger issue, or I'm stubborn, or I'm bullheaded. Admitting who we are first so that we can have a proper conversation. Because a lot of times we don't have good conversations, and that leads us into fights. And then, how are you going to, maybe you can't compel the other person. Maybe the other person won't be changed, but that doesn't have any bearing on how you approach the thing, because one day they'll be without accusation of you. They won't be able to accuse you, because you will have sought to be the peacemaker. You will have sought, especially if it's a parent-child or really any relationship, if you're the one who's being wise and you're handing out advice, or you are behaving in a way that looks like maturity, then they're not gonna be able to accuse you in the future. So you want to make yourself blameless in that situation. So even if they don't respond the way you want them to, you have behaved the way God desires you to behave. So you can have a relationship with your son or daughter without fear of speaking to somebody. You don't dig your feet in. Well, they didn't call me, or they didn't do that, or they didn't behave the way I want them to, so I'm not going to do this or that. That didn't accomplish anything, did it? And hey, probably got to take my own advice there. Be the bigger person. Man, that is a hard pill to swallow, isn't it, brothers and sisters? We really don't want to behave like that. Our flesh wants to, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to show you. Well, all that's going to do is just leave us empty and with no place to go. What What a day, Missy.
It's been a day.
What a day, Missy.
It's been a day. It's been a very long day.
I was up at 5:30 going. We had the jetty. The jetty was at the house at 6. We had to go get the mills at 6:45, 6:50. Almost 7 before I got there. Bring her back home. Get everybody roused up. Take Abby back to Brewston by 8:15. Catch the bus. Back home. Then we had a bunch of chores to get done today. Old Mads was probably pretty tired too.
It was a long day with 2 babies. They were good though. They were good babies today.
So Missy and I, we got into this. We can't get off of the 80s at 8. 80s on 8 on Sirius Radio. We finally reprogrammed the channels where we got some different channels. We've been on 80s on 8 for weeks now, and every time we want to change it, another song comes on. We're like, oh wow, we have to sing that song. I remember when I was younger, my Uncle Mark used to listen to this Solid Gold Saturday Night Show or whatever. They would play all the songs from the 70s and whatever, the previous decades, classic hits. And back then I could never, it's like, why didn't I listen to this old stuff, Well, now, the 80s and 90s, that's what we listen to. We listen to, even whether it's pop or rock, country, we're always listening to the old stuff from when we were kids.
I always swore up and down I would never do that. I remember it being excruciating for me riding in a vehicle listening to the 60s and 70s. I thought, oh, I will never do this to my kids. And what do?
Well, Abby's been getting the brunt of it. Madison doesn't ride with us as much anymore, but Abby's getting the brunt of it because she has to go here and there with us. So she's always getting an 80s concert, but she's got those Beats headphones on her ears, so she never knows what we're doing. So I don't know whether she hears the concert or not, but she's getting one. But I remember, my Uncle Bill always listened to older music. So my Uncle Mark and my Uncle Bill, my Uncle Mark always listening to that Solid Gold Saturday Night deal or whatever it was. And my Uncle Bill was always, he got me tuned into the Beach Boys and all those, the Eagles and all those bands from those time periods. And I used to listen to all that. So it's just, I'm not listening to that old of music now, but our music, the stuff we grew up with, that's what we're stuck on. We're driving down the road now listening to the 80s on 8, and if we get bored of that, we'll turn it to the 90s, and then we'll go find the old country station, and if that doesn't do, we'll turn it to the outlaw country station. So we must be those people now.
We are those people.
So you know how I've been talking about being on purpose with our relationships. Whether it's our husband and wife relationship, our relationship with our children, our grandchildren, our neighbor. Oh, that was a bear, a piece of plastic. Whether it's our neighbor or whoever we come in contact, being on purpose about that. And sometimes it just seems like people just can't talk to each other. They just won't. What is that? What is that? And I have it too about some things. Maybe I'm getting over it. Maybe I'm being awakened to it. But I'm sure there are people that you don't want to, or you have situations where you're intimidated in speaking to someone.
I'm a peacemaker, so I want to avoid conflict at all costs. So however I need to do that is generally what I do, even if it means swallowing my pride and taking one on the chin.
Well, I talked about that earlier, but it's not always about making peace. It is making peace. We want to be the peacemakers. We don't want to we don't want to be just someone who's causing trouble. But on the other hand, there's sometimes we need to talk to somebody about something. Like you have something that you want to say to your husband or your wife, or and you can't, or you shouldn't, and maybe you're a good example of that. And so there's two sides of the coin. Maybe I would have, or in the past I would have a tendency to get angry if someone approached me with something, and then maybe you would have the intimidation of maybe just being quiet and not saying anything, and then both sides are bottled up.
Right.
The anger gets bottled up. You don't get your point out. So, like, if you had something to speak to your daughters about, something important, but we shouldn't be clammed up about that. We shouldn't be quiet about that, and we shouldn't.
Welcome to West Virginia.
Welcome to West Virginia. We shouldn't be in a position where we're fearful of talking to someone. That's what our Christian maturity is. Our Christian maturity should be that we can speak to someone, that it doesn't need to be met with a fight, with a conflict. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you should have the confidence of approaching someone. Anybody should approach someone in a manner that isn't already instigating a fight. We're looking to appease the situation. We're looking to build. We're looking to either resolve something for ourselves, let someone know that they hurt us in a way. And if someone approaches us that way, we should be mature enough to accept it and say, yeah, I understand that. That's part of that looking in the mirror thing that I was talking about. We got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, this is who I am. So that's what we've been talking about today. And I mean, I've been talking about it for weeks now, about being on purpose in our relationships, being on purpose in our lives, learning to approach people and speak about things without that, whatever that is. I mean, anxiety, nervousness, that where you get tense inside. I was just talking to someone yesterday about being afraid to speak to their boss because they didn't want to. Well, to be frank, it was a woman who had a man boss, and she didn't want to get emotional in front of her male boss. So, that from a guy standpoint, we wouldn't understand that sometimes. We would have a different set of anxiety. But from a woman's standpoint, she doesn't want to speak to a man because she would get emotional about the thing. So that's a weird thing. But we should be, well, not everybody's a Christian, but from a Christian standpoint, we should approach a situation with the trust in God to say, I got to go do this. I gotta talk to someone about this. I gotta let you know that this causes a feeling in me. It either makes me angry, makes me sad. I don't feel like this is right. But we got to be able to be on purpose and not just let things happen by accident. I guess that's what I'm most concerned about, is just not living by accident. Wondering how you got to a place when you didn't look at a road map. I mean, I know we often take roads that we don't know. That's part of our fun, but we kind of know. Well, I know north, south, east, and west. You don't know where you're at any time. But if you can't just, well, I got here. I don't know how I got here, but I got here. That's living by accident.
I do know to flip the map upside down if I'm heading south.
Well, now nobody uses a map now because we have, Google and Google Maps, and the card tells you where you're supposed to go. But we just need to be aware of who we are, and that if we have an awareness, a self-awareness of who we are, who I am, then I can much more easily approach someone without that hammer in my hand. I'm going with, hey, I want to resolve this. I'm not looking to destroy this relationship. I'm looking to resolve this relationship. I'm looking to build you up. I'm looking to have you help me take another step. And I think if we just live by accident, and that's why we see all the drama on Facebook and all the other social medias, because we're lying to ourselves about who we are, and then we're not being on purpose about. Wonder why fathers and sons don't talk for long periods of time, why they're mad at each other. Well, neither one of them have made a move to correct it. The pride gets in the way.